Hello, welcome back to the podcast. If you are listening to this after the previous episode, then welcome. Please continue on. But if you're listening to this as a standalone, we do recommend that you listen to the previous one first because we did have a lot to talk about with regards to Jojo Rabbit, and so it went over time, so we decided to split it into two parts. And so, because of this, we recommend that you listen to the first part first, which is the previous episode we published. Yes, thank you.
Anyway, what are we talking about? Ilsa.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's he is afraid of her, but then they also play on that narrative that you should be afraid of Jewish people because they'll do all these horrible things and stuff like that, and they're barbaric. Was there anything you wanted to talk about with Ilsa? Yeah. Okay. So Jojo, once there's a scene where he's just with some other, so he's with Captain K and some of the other Nazi leaders, and they give him this idea of writing a book about Jews in order to identify them better so we can kill them more easily, because according to them, Nazis and Jewish people didn't look that different. And so he got this idea, if I write this book about what they're like, of what Jews are like, then it'll be easier to identify them, and then it'll just be easier for everyone to be able to kill them. So he thought that would be a very great thing to do for the Nazi Union. So he goes up to Elsa. By this point, he knows that he can't kill Ilsa because his life would be in danger, and his mother's life would be in danger as well. So he doesn't kill her or attempt to. So he goes up to her and he says, "You have to tell me everything about Jews." And he says, "So tell me where Jews live." And Elsa grabs his book and she starts drawing something, and then she hands the drawing to Jojo, and he sees that she's drawn Jojo's head onto the page, and it says Dumm Kopf, which translates to dumb head. And and Jojo says, "No, I asked you to make a picture of where you guys live." And Elsa replies, "That's where we live, in your head." In Nazi's heads. So she just, it was a very
Subtle and beautiful way, I guess.
yeah, of showing him that we're just people. And another thing that she says is that Jojo asks, "So what are you guys like, and what are Jews like?" And she says, "We're you but human. We're Nazis but human.
We're you but human.
We're you but human.
We're like you but human."
And Jojo replies, "Please take this seriously."
Yeah.
Which is really, really funny as well. So she's really, really smart in the way she tries to explain to Jojo that Jewish people are just normal people.
So she said something like, "Oh, we can read people. We can read each other's minds."
Yeah.
He's like, "Whoa, really? Can you read German minds?" And she's like, "No, their heads are too thick to penetrate," which is like another way of saying, "Oh, they're like really stupid people, and they don't even know what they're thinking or what's correct," which is again very, very funny.
Yeah.
Is that what you were?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to talk about.
Nice. Okay. Yes. So one thing that I want to talk about is eventually Ilsa and Jojo start becoming closer and they become friends. And Jojo actually starts to develop feelings for her a little bit. Because and the thing is, Jojo doesn't actually have many friends. He only has one friend. And so I think it's nice that he has this girl to talk to, and there's a nice, so it's nice to, see how their friendship sort of develops, and there's this one instance where
he asks her for his book. He's like, "So, what do Jews like?" And she's like, "Oh, Jews like pretty things and things that glitter and diamonds and beautiful words and stuff like that." And Jojo's like, "Oh, they also and ugly things. Jews love ugly things." And she sort of looks at him in sort of a sad way, like, "Man, this kid has such horrible thoughts, and such incorrect thoughts." And then later on, he's talking to the like he's talking to imaginary Hitler, and he goes, "Hitler, do you think I'm ugly?" And Hitler's like, "Yes, I do," because in the movie, Jojo has an accident which causes his face to be scarred, and so it's very interesting because throughout the movie, a lot of Nazi people call him hideous and ugly and
so
deformed, which again sort of shows how they have this craving for perfection, um, while for example, Ilsa talks to him as if he's a normal human being. She doesn't say anything like that to him. His mother also says, "Oh, you're not bad looking. You're not deformed." So it's really interesting, that sort of like twist in narrative, because these are people that he's supposed to look up to, the Nazis and the people in power and stuff, but they all think he's hideous. Anyway, so he asks Hitler, he's like, "Adolf, do you think I'm ugly?" And Adolf says, "Very much, yes." And this is really interesting because it's as if he's thinking, because he thinks that Jews like ugly things. And so from that perspective, he's thinking, "Oh, maybe Ilsa likes me because I am ugly," which was a really sort of cool play on the narrative, because he likes Ilsa a little bit, and he thinks that, oh, he doesn't think that she likes him, but he's sort of hoping for that to happen, which I thought was quite cute. And then there's this other scene, and it's a cool, nice twist in narrative where Ilsa and Jojo are talking, and Ilsa says, "You're not a Nazi. You're just a boy who wants to be part of a club, and wants to be known. You're not a Nazi." And at this point, I guess she's feeling very compassionate. But then later on, some instances happen where she is deeply hurt by some things that Jojo does, and Jojo says something like, "Oh, we're friends." And she says, "Jew and Nazi are not friends." And so she is actively calling him a Nazi because she's deeply hurt by something he's done. So I thought it was really cool how there was like a nice, yeah, uh, sort of disposition happening there. Yeah. And then another thing that I wanted to talk about, which ties with Rosie, Jojo, and Ilsa, is at one point, Rosie and Jojo are, they're outside. They're sort of dancing. Oh no, well, Rosie is dancing, and she says, "Life is a gift. We must celebrate it. We dance to show God that we are grateful." And I think Jojo says something like, "Oh, I don't dance," or something like that. And Rosie says, "Dancing is for people who are free." Which really ties neatly, because later on, Jojo asks her, when they've become more closer friends, and I think Jojo has become, he sort of learned that this whole Nazi thing is ridiculous. Jojo asks her, "Oh, what are you going to do when you're free?" And she says that she'll dance. And this ties in really beautifully to the end, because at the end of the movie, it's this really epic scene where they both dance to the song called "Heroes" by Bowie?
I don't know.
Okay. "Heroes" by David Bowie, I believe. And yeah, it's quite beautiful how, like, over time this sort of thing builds up, and it's just incredible ending. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the depiction of Hitler. So the director of the movie, who is
a Polynesian Jewish man. Oh, sorry, Taiki Waititi. That's his name.
So he dresses up as Hitler and becomes Hitler in the movie. which is really cool because Hitler hated Jewish people, and now there's this Jewish that is, being depicted as him. It would really probably get on like Hitler's nerves if he saw this movie. But anyway, it's really interesting because they show Hitler as this really really silly individual. Like he's quite dumb and stupid.
Like
and
a parody of Hitler.
yeah, it's a relatively like it's sort of a parody of Hitler where he's like, oh, there was this bomb that went off, and I, nothing happened to me, because I have bomb-proof legs. And Jojo's like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. Or he said something like, oh well, I have to go now. We're going to have unicorn at my place. Unicorns don't exist.
And he's vegetarian.
And he's apparently vegetarian, so it's just silly. And he's like, oh, let's get out of here. Libraries are dumb. So all these little things, it's quite clever how they did it to show Hitler as a sort of very silly person. Also, interestingly, I read this thing. I don't know how factual it is, but apparently the director didn't actually do much research on the kind of person Hitler was before he made the movie. I don't know how factual it is, but I think in an interview he said something like, oh look, Hitler was such a horrible man, I don't even think he deserved to be researched on. I just like whatever I thought, whatever depiction I had of him, I just put it in the movie.
Okay.
I don't even know what kind of person he actually was. Which is really interesting because there's one scene where he is holding out cigarettes to Jojo. And it's interesting because Hitler was apparently, and I believe this is true, that he was very against smoking, and he might have been the first person who actually launched an anti-smoking campaign. And then there's this other scene where he's eating meat, and apparently he was a vegetarian as well, so it sort of plays on his character, like, it's very opposite to what he actually was. Yeah, so...
Because a child wouldn't have his best friend as a very serious person, right? It worked very well. Hitler's character in the movie worked really well in terms of being a child's imagination.
Yeah. I guess like another thing you could say is that Jojo actually didn't know that much about Hitler. He actually didn't know what kind of person Hitler was. Yep. And so all of this sort of ties in with the kind of person he thought Hitler was, but actually wasn't.
Yep.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's just so towards the end of the movie, probably like the last 25 to 30 minutes, they show a lot of the war's barbarity, how awful World War II was, especially in Germany, and the kinds and the way Nazis, like soldiers and everything, the way they treated the Jews. Some of the quotes that really struck out to me, or the scenes that struck out to me were they showed a scene in the battlefield where everyone's just fighting, and obviously the kids who were trained, they're there as well, and they're fighting as well, and this one supervisor, she has this kid. She doesn't have this kid, but a kid's near her, and she ties a grenade onto the child, and she says, "See that American man? Just go and give him a hug," so that they both blow up and kill a whole bunch of people. So it's just so disturbing and disgusting, the way that the things that they did. The extent to which they could have gone, the extent to people go to in war in general, it's just, wow. It just doesn't make sense how people could be like that. And just another, in the same scene, she tells another kid to just go and shoot anyone who looks different to us. Again, just reiterates the amount of hate that there is between cultures and people who just have either different views or look a little different, or it was just a very
good depiction of how much people dislike each other just for being a little different. And the extent to which people can go because of that hatred.
Yeah.
So, when Rosie says love is the strongest thing in the world, it seems that hate is, well, obviously hate is extremely strong as well. If there so much so much can happen, but I think we have seen a whole bunch. We have seen examples, and we are seeing examples of how strong hate is. But I think we have rarely seen how strong examples of how strong love is. I think.
Yeah.
We've seen that very rarely in the human race.
That's true.
To a large scale, we have seen it in small scales, like how strong the love between a mother and a child could be, or between people. But to a large scale, I think we have only truly seen how strong the hate is.
Yeah.
It's so awful.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it doesn't sell as much as hate does. It's easier to hate than
It is easier to hate. Yeah.
So that's quite a sad thought to be thinking of.
It's easier to find differences between people than there is to find similarities. Although there's so many more similarities than there are differences. But I think the conclusion I've always come up to in terms of hate or these differences is, in terms of human psychology, is that I think humans just like negativity. They just focus on negativity always. They've always been that way.
Yeah.
Ungrateful in terms of ungratefulness, in terms of not appreciating things, in terms of everything. It's just always been look at the negative. Always look at the negative. And it just leads to everything that happens.
Yeah. Makes sense. I think I was reading this thing, and apparently it might be because of the way we've evolved. Because thinking about the negative has allowed us to survive longer. Thinking about the fact that, oh, I might die tomorrow because of how cold it is, let me build a fire. And people that didn't think that, people that were like, it's fine, we'll survive the night. Stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about the negative, how I'm different to this person, this is bad, so I should kill them. That's also led to the demise of so many people. So it has prevented people from living longer as well.
But it allowed people that were stronger to live for longer, and allowed for humans to progress and have bigger, better brains, whatever. But it's quite unfortunate. And I don't know how true it is, obviously. But it was this post that was saying, that was giving a reason for why we're all so pessimistic, or why we go more towards negative emotions than positive emotions. Maybe it's helped with our survival more. Yeah. It's an interesting thing to think about. We could dive into it more later on as well. Do like a podcast on this sort of thing. Think really deeply about it. Yeah.
Okay, so there's been quite a few instances in the movie where, not quite a few, a couple of instances in the movie where Rosie is tying Jojo's shoelaces because he's so tiny. He doesn't even know how to tie his shoelaces, and that's one way of showing how Rosie takes care of him. And at the end of the movie, there is this scene where Jojo does Ilsa's shoelaces, so he ties them, and we believe that might be a depiction of care. So Rosie taking care of Jojo, and then Jojo taking care of Ilsa, looking after her. Perhaps that might be symbolism that in the end it just shows that they don't have a relationship of hate, or they don't want to do anything negative to each other. They want to look after each other. They want to care for each other. A very unconventional relationship between a Jewish girl, and a Nazi boy.
Yeah. And you can sort of symbolize like family, like parental love, sort of, because Rosie doing this for Jojo was being a mother, while maybe Jojo doing this to Ilsa is sort of like brotherly love towards her. Yeah, it's quite pretty. Apart from obviously everything else in this movie, the humor, the characters, it was also shot really well. There were some scenes that were
directed really well.
It was directed really well, and some of the cinematography just stood out so vividly, and it was so beautiful. So, for example, there's one scene where after the burning of the books, it transitions from the burning of the books to these tents set up, and that just that one scene is so beautiful because it's obviously it's at night. It's very hard to shoot things. I mean, because I am such a I film so much. I know. It's hard to film at night.
She hasn't, for anyone who's confused.
Yeah. It's hard to film at night, but these tents are brightly lit, and there's like flames in the air, sort of like maybe they're...
the remains from the books.
They're remains from the books, or they are... what are they called?
Fireflies?
Fireflies, yes. Fireflies. And it's just it's a very beautiful shot. It's a very, I could look at that for hours and feel very connected and feel very cozy.
Absolutely.
Then there's this other scene where Rosie and Jojo are riding bikes through an open field, and it's blue sky, and it is just absolutely stunning. Like, the colors in it. And if you go on Tumblr, people do a lot of... they make GIFs of a lot of... And I call it GIFs because I don't know if it's GIF or GIF. Okay, and if it's GIF, then I'm still going to call it GIF. So if it's, the GIFs, they put different shots together, and it all works out really well. And it really helps you appreciate the colors and the placing and the costumes and everything. So that was another thing that was really stunning.
So towards there's the scene where they show there's these houses or apartments, and in the roofs there are small windows that are shaped like eyes, and they show a couple of those. So they show them in sequences, like they show one pair of windows, and then another pair of windows, and another pair of windows, and it seemed like they were just showing that everyone is being watched, and everyone is unsafe. They can't. They're not really private, and so you should really, really be aware of what you're doing because everyone's watching.
Yeah. And it's really, really powerful because this is the part of the movie where something very tragic happens, and so the eyes looking down at the scene, it's relatively scary, the way they've shown it. So yeah, it was nice, very nice literary device.
Yeah. And I'd just like to talk about the German. So I've done German in school since year 7. I did it through year 7 to year 12, which was really great. Loved it. And they just... There's obviously... It's set in Germany, so they had to put some German in. But the German accents, I think, especially some characters, were just so on point, and I just absolutely loved it. Like Captain K once says, we're going to blow stuff up, and I just loved it so much, because in German, when you have the words, the letters S and T together, or you have the words S and P together, you have to, you use sh. So you make it into, so if it's ST, you would go st, and if it's SP, you go sp. So there's this word in German, it's SPIEL. It means play, and you would say it as if you're saying it with a H, so you would say Spiel. You wouldn't say Spiel. So I just really love that German accent.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and then when like we said before, when Jojo says, "I love killing," like the love, oh, I just love it so much. It always reminds me of my. Although my German teacher didn't really have a German accent in English because she's lived in Australia so much, for so long, but um, it just reminded me of her. It was just really nice, and my German teacher was really, really great too. So I think they all did really well with the German accent. It was very accurate.
Lovely. Lovely. All right. You know, Aasima, I feel like I've talked too much in this podcast and you haven't talked at all, so talk more.
Okay, so the movie ends with a quote by an actual poet, actually. This is a popular quote, and it goes, "Let everything happen to you. Beauty and terror. Just keep going. Nothing is final." So it's just saying, you know, horrible things will happen, but great things will happen as well. Terror will happen, beauty will happen. You just have to keep going because nothing ever comes to an end. Nothing, well, the negativity that's happening, it wouldn't end that way. The positivity that's happening, it wouldn't end that way. It'll just keep on going. It just keeps on going. Yeah. You just let it happen, you know. Sometimes you really don't have the power to change it. So let it just happen. Just let it happen.
It ties with this really nice quote that I really love, which is, "This too shall pass." So, if you're feeling really sad, it will pass. If you're feeling really happy, this will pass. So cherish it as much as you can. Yeah. It's quite beautiful. Oh, also, another reason why this quote is so profound and works so beautifully with the movie is because it's by Rilke.
It's by who?
Rilke. You know how she, Ilsa, Nathan is Ilsa's fiance, and she says, "Oh, you know, Nathan proposed to me on the banks of something, and he recited poetry to me. He recited Rilke's poetry, and then Jojo gets jealous of that, and he tries to find Rilke's writings, and then like." uses that writing to write a breakup note to Ilsa, where he's like, you know, if we could do anything in love, we should let it end, or something like that. That's something that Rilke says. So it's really cool because they end it with this author who has been prevalent throughout the whole story. Yes.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yes. Right, so that is what we had to say about Jojo Rabbit. We will come to a close now. This will be in 2 parts.
Yeah, we can make it in 2 parts.
We will make it into 2 parts. Right, so Aasima, is there anything you learned, apart from everything that we've talked about?
Well, I learned everything that we talked about.
Oh, wow, that was so...
I think we'll have to change this segment
so
because
incredible.
we literally just talk about what we've learned throughout the whole podcast. So we gotta change the segment into something else.
But, see, because I was thinking from the perspective, for example, when we think about a song, if I talked about a song, I don't think I would say that much of, oh, this is what it makes... Actually, yeah, it would. Never mind. Anyway, I did have something even more to add on.
Yes, go ahead.
So what this movie has taught me that, honestly, there are no rules when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to creating films, when it comes to creating music, when it comes to taking photos. There are no rules, okay? You should do what you want to do. You have an idea? Just go with it. Don't even think about getting approval.
Whether it's right. Yeah.
Whether it's right or wrong, whether it's too much or too less, because I feel like this, I haven't seen that many movies in my life, but this was a truly unique movie to me. It was very different, and maybe, I have probably never seen a satire movie before this one. So, because of that, I think this was such a new thing to me. But somewhere out there, one person was like, you know what, I want to create a movie that's like deeply sarcastic in a very disturbing way. And that's how satire was born, right? They probably didn't ask anyone. They were like, you know what, I want to do it, whatever. So, it just makes me think that, like, this movie really sort of made me think that, you know what, because I want to write books one day. Maybe I want to do a lot of things. I want to do a lot of creative things.
Yeah.
You know, and this movie is sort of an inspiration that, do what you want to do. Okay, do it in the style you want to do it. Don't think too much about,
What people
what
think.
people think. Don't think too much about whether it's the right way to do something. Just do it. Nike. So yes,
Just do it, exactly. We should buy Nike more.
we should buy Nike. We should buy Nike.
We should buy more Nike products.
We should buy more secondhand Nike products because Nike does not engage in fair trade. I don't think it does.
Yeah, we shouldn't buy Nike.
Don't buy Nike, folks.
Probably should say that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do what you want to do.
Do what you want to do. All right, so that's basically all we have for this podcast. This episode, sorry. We have an email now. So if you have any thoughts on this, you can email us at carchitchats, that's an S at the end, at gmail.com. Or you can even message us on our Instagram page by the same name, Car Chit Chats. It's got a very pretty logo. Well, it's the same logo that you'll see when we upload this to the podcast sites, which we haven't done yet. But we will do. We'll get to it, obviously. If you're listening to this, obviously we've done it. Yes. Thank you. And
Thank you. And guten bye.
guten bye.